Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Thank you. Today we have the pleasure of hearing the story of our neighbor and friend, Sandee Brooks.
Yay.
Sandee was born and raised in Detroit, Michigan. She is one of 5 siblings. She has a daughter, Jessica, and 2 granddaughters, Amber and Sydney. Sandee married Mike Rambo in 1996 and gained 2 stepdaughters, Laura and Sarah. Mike and Sandee retired to the Low Country in 1999. Sandee has been very active in Rotary for the past 25 years. She is also part of the Women's Association of Hilton Head Island since 2002. Sandee and Mike moved to Tide Point last March 2022. Her business career included a lengthy career with Michigan Bell Telephone Company. For the rest of her story, let's all welcome our speaker, Sandee Brooks.
I need the other mic so when we record it, it'll...
Okay, you got it wrapped all around you here. Right. I know.
Somebody up.
All right.
Well, thanks so much for having me tonight. And as you just heard, I've been married to this guy since 1996. And if I'd have known speaking at Tide Point would have got him to wear dress shoes and dress pants, I'd have been speaking here a long time ago. Well, when I was born, 1950, I might be a little younger than most of you, probably all of you. My mother said, "Oh my gosh, am I glad that's over with?" And the doctor said, "It's not." I'm a twin. We were 3 pounds 1 ounce and 3 pounds 7 ounces, so my mother did not know she was having twins. And we were in an incubator for 4 weeks. We were supposed to get up to 5 pounds before they let us go home, and we were getting close, so they decided they would let us go home. But my dad had to go out and buy everything, 2 of everything. So, and as Lee said, we became 5 siblings. My sister Becky is 2 years younger than I am. My brother Mark, 5 years. And the little sister down there, Laura, she's 10 years younger than I am. When my mother was pregnant with my sister Becky, of course back then they didn't do ultrasounds or MRIs or what, and my mother decided they were going to have an X-ray to see if she was having twins again. And my dad came home from work before my mom got home from the hospital, and my aunt was with us babysitting, and my aunt told my dad we were having twins again. And he just went, oh my God, what am I going to do, what am I going to do? And then my mother came home and she said, why are you so upset? And he said, twins again, what are we going to do? And she goes, no, it's not, it's only 1. And he wanted to kick my aunt out of the house for the rest of her life, but he didn't. But my aunt was quite the practical joker. And that's my mom and dad. They were in Vegas at a convention. My father worked in construction, asphalt, and I can imagine some of you know some of those asphalt jokes. And my mom went to nursing school, and then they got married while she was in nursing school. And the nursing school did not like the fact that she got married. And they did their best to kick her out, and they did. So my mom became a housewife at that point. When I was growing up, I played the piano. My twin sister and I played duets. And my grandfather said, if you play honky-tonk or ragtime, I had honky-tonk music, I'll buy you a piano. so he bought us a piano. So we were pianists until we were probably about 13 or 14. You know, those teenage years kick in, and you don't want to practice all the time. And I said, there's the 5 of us in 1980. I have to say my twin sister over there, Sharon, and my brother, they both passed away. My brother had bronchiectasis, which is a lung disease that you get when you have measles and pneumonia. And he was in the hospital with pneumonia and got measles, because all of us had measles, and they sent him home. And the doctors did not know what was wrong with his lungs until he was 18 years old. And then they figured it out. He had a double lung transplant in 1998 and had 2 good years. But because his body was so ravaged from having the disease for so long, it didn't last. But he did have 2 good years. And my twin sister, she just passed away a year and a half ago. She had stage 4 lung cancer, did not know it, and had COVID. The hospital sent her home, and it just got worse from there, and she found out she had lung cancer, and lasted about 2 months after she was diagnosed. So there's the 3 of us are left, Becky and Laura and myself. Well, I went to Cody High School in Detroit from 1966 to 1968. At that time, we had middle school until 9th grade, so we went to high school at 10th grade, 10, 11, and 12. While I was there, I was in what was called the retail co-op. See me over there? The reason I got into retail co-op was so I could get a job, make some money. So I worked for Crowley's department store. Some of you might know Crowley's. I started in sales, and then I went into credit checking. So I would open a big ledger. When somebody wanted to put something on credit, they'd call up to me, several of us. We'd open this big book to see if that person was on time with their payments and approve their credit. So a lot of manual work back then, a lot of manual work. I was also on the swim team up over there. In the 3 years that I was at the high school, the first year we didn't win all of our meets, but this my junior and senior year we won all 5 of our swim meets. And I did the breaststroke and the butterfly. And if you don't know anything about athletic swimming and breaststroke and butterfly, my neck was huge from all of that working out. Oh yeah, big time. And along with being on the swim team, I was also in synchronized swim. Now, that really wasn't us. But in senior year, they started a synchronized swim group. We don't think we were that good to do that kind of pose. But it was interesting to learn how to, you know, sink yourself down and come back up, you know, like Esther, what was her name? Esther Rogers? Esther Williams. Esther Williams, yeah. Ginger Rogers and Esther Williams. Well, right out of high school, my uncle told me if I wasn't going to college to get a job. And the telephone company was the best place to work. So in 1968, I started at Michigan Bell in Detroit. And that's where I met Michael. I worked on the midnight shift, and I would come in at 11:30 at night. They wouldn't let the girls have keys to the building. So we would come to the front door, lay on the doorbell, ring on the doorbell, and Michael or his partner would come down and let us in the front door. Well, there was a bar across the street. And a guy from the bar came over and tried to get me to go to the bar. I said, well, I'm not 21. And he said, I can get you a drink. And I'm laying on that doorbell. So Michael and his partner came down and let me in. And then we talked to the boss about the incident. They still wouldn't give us keys. So they made us come in the back door, park in the parking lot. Michael had to sit on the loading dock waiting for us to come in and let us in. Well, you know how often we were on time. But those were the days when you had a lot of camaraderie at work, and everybody did what they did. Nobody tattled on anybody. And I worked for Michigan Bell, an AT&T company that became Ameritech, that became SBC, Southern Bell Telephone, that is now AT&T. So full circle. At one point in time at the phone company, they decided they didn't have enough women in management. So their solution to that was to make all the secretaries management. So their numbers jumped. And I got to be in management, but no pay raise, just a different title. So I worked in the switching systems area of the telephone company. Switching systems is, there are two sides to it, well, inside and outside. People that run the lines outside to your homes, and people that do all the translations inside to make the phone calls work from point to point. And so I did a lot of that over most of my career. I was in the inside work. And at some point, I went into technical support. And as you can see, I was the only girl there. And I was the only woman at that point, in Michigan Bell's technical support organization. So did a lot of training with Northern Telecom equipment, and that's where I got my IT background. And we went to Raleigh for a lot of the training because that's where Northern Telecom was housed. And so Michael and I spent a lot of time in Raleigh going to school. While I was at Michigan Bell, I got my degree. They paid 100%. That was wonderful, phone company, to pay for 100% of your degree. So in Michigan, I went to Madonna College at the time. It's now a university. And then I went to Central Michigan, and I was transferred to Chicago. So I ended up graduating with my business degree at DePaul University in Chicago. Took a long time to get. Didn't really need it for my career, but it was personal at that point. I wanted my degree. In the 80s, I had a business with a business partner called Undersea Art, underwater photography. And if some of you have been to my house, you've seen some of my underwater art work. We did a lot of photography in the Caribbean, saw a lot of beautiful things, saw some sharks, kissed some dolphins. Michael, when we got together in 94, 93, he took up diving, and we both did a lot of diving in the Caribbean and even in Fiji. So Michael and I were married to people and then single at the same time. We'd known each other since 1968 when he let me in the front door of the phone company. We finally were single together and got married in 1996. And I could give you a whole nother story, but fourth time's a charm. He's a keeper. Our daughters stood up with us at the wedding. My daughter Jessica and his two, Lara and Sarah. And my daughter and I, the two girls were in Alaska at the time, and my daughter was in Michigan, and we went shopping for those bridesmaid dresses. And my daughter put the dress on, and she said, "Mom, my tattoo on my shoulder shows." That's all right, that's fine. And so his daughters come in for the wedding from Alaska, and they put their dresses on. Both of them had tattoos on their shoulders. So the picture, I don't have a picture of us standing at the altar with all the tattoos on the back. I said to Michael, maybe I should get one too. Well, my daughter Jessica was born in 1974, and then in 2000 gave me my first granddaughter, Amber. And that's Sydney and Amber a little while later. And there they are, 18 and 22. They're grown up.
Wow.
Yep. And that's the only grandchildren we'll have, and that's okay. We love them. So in 1999, we knew we were going to retire from the phone company. Michael retired a little before I did. I will tell you, I was 49 when I retired from the phone company. They have a very generous program. Your service and your age had to equal, I think it was 80, and I was 49, and I had 31 years of service. So I met the formula and said, I'm out of here. I don't like the cold. So, and we had been in Raleigh, and Michael had a conference to go, and he said, well, why don't we look, he said, I'll look at Raleigh, you come down for the weekend and we'll look around. Well, he got to Raleigh and said, you're not gonna want to retire in Raleigh. It's just not the place to retire. So we had friends down here that lived in Belfair, and so we called them up and said, can we come see you early? Because we were gonna see them anyway, and they said, sure. So we went down and saw them, looked around, and I said, I can live here. So we built a house in Rose Hill. And we lived in Rose Hill from 1999 to 2003. During that time, I started with Volunteers in Medicine on Hilton Head Island. And I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with it. They do medical service, medical care for the underserved in the community. They have all kinds of services from any kind of general medicine to even mental health and dental and orthopedic and all kinds of stuff. When I first started there, I did data entry, and they said, well, we want to get an electronic medical record system. So I said, sure, I'd help with that. So I went to Texas, learned the program, we brought it back to the clinic, and I trained over 300 lay people, professionals,
Yes, you did.
and everybody in the clinic on how to use electronic medical records. Now, Jerry was excellent.
Hey, so were you, my dear.
He really liked the system, he used the system, but there were a few doctors that were there because they didn't want to use a computer, and they left their practice because they were getting into electronic records. So, and it was okay. We didn't force anybody to use the electronic medical records because I had a couple people that worked for me that helped put the information into the system from their handwritten notes. If you've ever seen a doctor's handwriting, you know, somebody's hiding back there. It's can be a little difficult to read, but you can get used to it. So we did a pretty good job. They finally, Jerry, did you know this? They finally got rid of the paper records. They are all computerized now. So that's fabulous. It took a long time. I mean, I was there for 14 years, and we still had paper and electronic. So, well, you might recognize some of these people. They were volunteers at Volunteers in Medicine, and I probably missed some people, but Richard in the back. I don't see Carl here tonight. Jerry, of course, and Katie. She's here. So. A lot of people that worked at that wonderful institution and gave of their time and their energy. I also joined the Women's Association of Hilton Head Island. Now, the Women's Association of Hilton Head Island is an organization that does philanthropic things in the community, as well as it has over 50 interest groups for the women to join, from cards to games to theater to cooking to going out for lunch at restaurants, to having a chef series, to having book authors, all kinds of things that you can think of. And they've also, some of the things they've done is helped with CODA, the literacy volunteers. They helped with the first building for the Children's Center that used to be off Marshland or Matthews Drive down by the Circle. And we are now involved with putting in a maze at Honeyhorn. So you can go through the maze at Honeyhorn. It should be done sometime this year. So, and I was the president of the Women's Association of Hilton Head Island during their 50th anniversary year. And you might recognize Mary Ann Peoples, the mayor's wife. What we did for our 50th anniversary year was we put and we helped refurbish the building that is the catering house next to the Marianne Peoples Pavilion in Honeyhorn. And our plaque is on the door that says restrooms. But we helped with that. We had a high tea out at Honeyhorn that day, and a lot of ladies. And we've done a lot with Honeyhorn because of our association with what we have done out at Honeyhorn. And you may recognize some of these ladies. Pat Foley, Marie Rulin, she's back in Wahi.
Oh, yeah.
Lori Liscombe, she's over there.
Where'd this go?
And of course, Faye.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, in 2004, actually it's 2003, a neighbor in Rose Hill was a realtor, and she was showing property in this new community called Hampton Hall. And she wanted everybody to go look at property, just because she wanted to win an award. Well, I will tell you, a lot of people went and looked at property, and she came in second for the award, and we looked and decided to buy. So we bought property in Hampton Hall, and then we sold in Rose Hill and moved to Hampton Hall. We were in Hampton Hall from 2004 until 2022 when we moved here. When I first moved down, I joined the Rotary Club of Hilton Head Island. The Rotary Club of Hilton Head Island is about it's 58 years old now. And I joined in 2000. And one of the things Rotary is known for, Elaine knows all about Rotary,
Yes, she does.
is service above self and polio. Rick knows about polio. The #1 priority of Rotary International is to eradicate polio in the world. And there are still 2 countries that are endemic with polio, Pakistan and Afghanistan. And as you can imagine, those 2 are tough nuts to crack, to get in there and do the immunizations. Although I will tell you that we had over 300 cases of polio 2 years ago, and last year we had 22 cases of polio. So we're getting there. We are getting there. But in 2005, when Hurricane Katrina hit in the Gulf, a bunch of Rotarians, 5, again, you notice I'm the only girl, 5 Rotarians, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, went down to Pass Christiane and put up a playground for the children because they were devastated. They'd lost everything in that area. So we partnered with the Rotary Club in Pass Christiane and helped build this elaborate park and playground for the children. I tell people that I joined Rotary in 2000, but I really became a Rotarian at heart in 2005 when I put up that playground. It just made me feel like I really, really was a Rotarian at heart.
Sure.
Well, in 2015, some of you know, and you might not, Michael was diagnosed with primary central nervous system lymphoma, brain cancer. So we spent a lot of time up and down to MUSC. Every other week we were up at MUSC having chemo treatments. The weeks in between he was taking some pill medication, and everything worked beautifully. He was diagnosed in beginning of December, and in May he finished his last chemo, 100 hours straight of chemo, and the next MRI did not show any cancer in his brain. And it's been that way since 2016, which is wonderful. It did go to his eye. He had a little bit of lymphoma in his eye, and they gave him a chemo shot in the eye. Yikes. And it took care of it. 1 shot. They thought they might have to do 3, but 1 shot, 1 and done. So at that time, I was also ready to be district governor of our district in Rotary. Our district is the eastern 2/3 of South Carolina. So that's all my fellow classmates, we call each other, fellow district governors in the eastern seaboard, from Washington all the way down to the Caribbean. And we all met in Jamaica and dedicated a microscope for eye surgery for children to their hospital. And I'll tell you, we walked into that hospital and it was like walking into the 1950s. And I had to go into their medical records room and there was chaos. Charts were all over the place. But we did some service projects while we were there and really had a nice time. And you might notice the red shoes, the Chuck Taylor All-Star shoes. Well, each year the group of incoming district governors had a name for themselves, the first class, the second class. We were the All-Star class. And so we all got red Chuck Taylors. Even this guy in the, oops, let me go back. This guy right here is our international president. He's was from Nashville, Tennessee, John Germ. He's even got the shoes on. We got him a pair, so most of us bought the shoes. And when I went to my Rotary clubs, I wore the shoes. And I am at a Rotary meeting. Now you have to understand, in eastern two-thirds of South Carolina, we have 78 Rotary clubs. 78 at that time. We have a couple less today. But I had to drive to each Rotary club and give a half-hour presentation on what I felt was the goals of that year, my year as district governor. So it was up and down and over and back. We have breakfast, lunch, and dinner clubs all over our part of the state. So I'd put about 40,000 miles on my car, ate a lot of chicken. At one time, right after I was district governor, I think it was August, I was getting ready to go to a meeting up in Myrtle Beach, and I had a stomachache. And I said, well, if it doesn't go away by noon, I'm going to have to do something. So by noon, it hadn't gone away. So we went to the outpatient place, doctor box, they call it. And he said, I don't know what to tell you. You need to go to the hospital. So I went to the hospital. Eventually, they did a CAT scan and said, well, you got scar tissue wrapped around your intestines. Oh, he said, you need surgery. Michael said, well, when can we have this surgery? He goes, now. No. So I had the surgery. I called up the guy that is called my vice governor and said, Bernie, how you doing? He said, why? I said, I'm in the hospital. I just had surgery. Because if I couldn't fulfill my duties as district governor, he had to. And Bernie said, what's going on? I said, well, I'm fine. I said, well, I'm going to go to the meeting Friday. This was Wednesday. I said, I'm going to go to the meeting Friday, but you have to drive. And everything worked out fine. But it was like, hey, how's the vice governor doing? Why? And these are the past presidents of the Rotary Club of Hilton Head Island. You might know some of these people, I'm not sure. You know Henrik Schmidt. Henrik is in our Rotary Club. Yeah. He rejoined a couple of years ago, so he's in the Rotary Club as well. So in 2019, Michael and I went to India to participate in a National Immunization Day to give children the polio drops. Children have to have 3 doses of the polio vaccine, polio drops, basically age 3, 4, 5 for 3 years. And they have a lot of children in India, so you have to keep up on it. I mean, India was declared polio-free in 2012, but every year a group of Rotarians like these, several groups, go to India and participate in this day. They have, I've got some stats I'll show you in just a minute, but we saw a lot of nice things like the Taj Mahal behind us. I got a picture of it on a good day when it wasn't as cloudy or the air pollution there is really bad. And we saw some poverty. If you don't know what poverty is until you go to that part of the world. And I think you're probably aware that cows are sacred. And they're all over. I mean, literally all over. They're sitting in front of restaurants, they're sitting in front of stores, they're walking down the middle of the street. Who figured? But one of the Rotary clubs in the area was providing some clean water for this little village in Chandigarh, India. And while we were there, we visited a hospital, St. Stephen's Hospital. This hospital provided corrective surgery for polio patients, for the people that got polio and couldn't walk and their limbs were all disfigured. And they also made prosthetics for some of the polio patients. They were doing a lot of really good work in this hospital. We gave drops to the children. Isn't it funny, you tell the child to open your mouth for the drops, and you open yours. And these are some of the children waiting their turn. I mean, it was really a crush of children that were trying to get vaccinated and waiting in line, and the parents were bringing them. But here's some stats about India. There are 24 million children born a year in India. We had 7 million plus immunization booths in the country. There were 2.5 million vaccinator volunteers, 225 million doses of the vaccine. You gave each child 2 drops, and 209 million homes were visited. The reason they use drops in the developing countries is because they have so many children they have to immunize. I can give drops. I cannot give an injection. You have to be a licensed professional to give injections. So the underprivileged country, emerging countries, if you will, they still use the polio drops so that they can get the biggest bang, the most people vaccinated as they can at any given time. So we had, we did a lot of good work in the 2 weeks we were there. And what you would do, there's the vial with the drops, is you would go into the neighborhoods and check the houses because maybe Michael couldn't bring his second child to the immunization day. And there's another child in the house that needs the drops. So you would ask, has everybody been vaccinated, or do you need more vaccinations? And in this house, there were 3 children, and there was no one that needed to be vaccinated. So you would put that marking on the house, so if another vaccinator came along, they would see that they could pass that house. There might come up to a house that had 4 and 1, and there's 1, so then they would ask, because maybe when we were there, the child wasn't there either. So they would go back, somebody else would go back and check and try to make sure that all of the children, they kept pretty good records. They were all paper records. They had a ledger that they would write in when we were, giving out the vaccine. So, but they've been doing this process for a long time, and they've got it down to a science, I'll tell you. We visited in the community, and this is a garden that students made out of plastic bottles here and old shoes. They even had some plants in the broken pottery that they'd put together and done some things with. One of the things the local Rotary clubs did in this community was provided Western toilets for the school. They had holes in the ground. And so we gave them Western toilets, and you literally had to teach the children, specifically the boys, that they had to sit down on the Western toilet. They were standing on the toilet because they used to stand over a hole. So it was quite an education that they had to do with the children once they put in a Western style toilet. We were very fortunate in our travels. I never had to use a hole. Everywhere we went, we did find a Western toilet. So in 2022, we moved to Tide Point. We put our name on the list in, I think it was August, thinking it would be a couple of years. And at one point, I'm sure it was a couple of year wait. Well, it was 2 months. But when a house comes up and you like it, you gotta take it. So that's what we did. We grabbed the house and moved in. And Michael and I are very active. You've seen us around yoga. He goes up to the gym. We do trivia. We golf on Tuesdays. Charlie, sorry, I canceled. It's cold. But, we're looking forward to getting involved with more stuff. Well, when you would know that I moved from Bluffton to Hilton Head, and I was put on the Greater Bluffton Jasper County Volunteers in Medicine Board. So I'm now a board member on the Greater Bluffton Jasper County BIM. Now it's not as large as the one on Hilton Head. They have a clinic in Bluffton over by Plantation Park, and they have a clinic in Jasper County. And they provide similar services, not quite as many services as they provide here on Hilton Head. And in Jasper County, we're looking to expand because we can only see patients a couple of days a week because we just don't have the providers and the facility. So we're working on expanding that and growing there. We are separate from Hilton Head Island. However, I think there is a move afoot to do some talking. Right now, we also share a grant with the Hilton Head Island Bluffton, or Volunteers in Medicine to do mental health. We share healthcare providers that are provided by a grant from the Community Foundation of Low Country, I believe it is. So they're starting a little bit of collaboration, and I hope it continues because I think there's a lot of synergy that can be had between the two clinics. So, well, that's me in a nutshell. I wasn't a rocket scientist or anything big, but
Fantastic.
any questions?
Any questions?
Rick?
Yes, I've been astonished by your knowledge of polio. And can you explain a little bit about why it will not go away in the Middle East and Africa?
And the thing that people don't understand, because in the United States we have not had polio for a long, long time. Unless you've read recently, we have it in New York. In New York, someone brought a vaccine-derived polio into the country, and it is now in the water system in New York. Now, the community that it's in is a Hasidic community, and they have, most of the country has 90% vaccination rate. This community had less than 60%, and that's why they're having a little bit of a problem. But it's the same thing in the, Afghanistan and Pakistan are right next to each other. So they go across the border. It took us a long time to convince the authorities. The Taliban is actually behind us now in providing immunizations. They weren't for a while, but it took a long time to convince them. At one point in time, they said the United States is making your children, fertilizing your children, making them infertile because when it's not,
Sterile.
yeah, sterile, making them sterile, and it's not at all the case, not at all. So we got that stigma over with, but it's a plane ride away. Cross the border, somebody has it. I mean, the best defense is vaccination. If you're vaccinated, you will not get polio. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I was impressed by your richly active life. What is the source of energy? I mean, you can do so much.
I just couldn't stop. Well, I do a little more than I would like to do.
A lot more.
Probably a lot more, but keeps me busy. All of this stuff, especially Rotary. My big passion is Rotary.
Any other questions? Let's get, oh, one more here. Joe?
Just wondering, have any of your daughters or children gone into special fields like what you're doing? Medical or?
Well, my daughter works at pharmacy, so she does a little bit of that. Not really. Not really. They've all done their own things. So. And then, unfortunately, none of them are Rotarians. But they're young people working, and I mean, I didn't join Rotary until 2000. So I mean, I was almost 50 years old when I joined Rotary. So, and I had the time for it then. I wanted to give back. So.
Any other questions? Let's get Sandee a great hand.
Thank you, thank you.
Program.
What's the bar?
Next month we have Lee Niner. Lee Niner. And we're looking for other speakers. And I'll be out by the door and catch you on the way out. So you can volunteer to be a speaker.